Hey guys, welcome everybody to this new module, module 4. In this module we're going to look at strings, we're going to look at variables, and we're going to look at multitasking. So how do we actually run multiple loops, for example, in LabVIEW and share information between those loops. We've talked about strings, we're using strings every now and then, but a quick recap. A string is actually a set of ASCII characters. So we can type in names, and we can type in numbers, and we can type in symbols. We can type in everything, and it will all be seen as a character. So in this case, for example, if I say Ruben, let me wire this up, and then I can display it here. And there are a couple functions that go with these strings to actually analyze the strings, or to create strings, or to take apart strings. And we use them to transport information and sometimes display information as well. So let me just open up the strings palette. The first function that we see actually is string length. Works the same as the array, so we just input a string and the output is a numeric value. Let's create an indicator. So if I run it right now, then it gives me a length of 5, which I have 5 characters in my first name. Alright, and then there's one thing. Spaces are characters in strings as well. So if I add a couple of spaces after my name, then you won't see them, but they count as a character as well. You can see within the string, if I select it, you can see the spaces. So they count as a character as well. There's actually an option if you run into a problem with strings and you need to get rid of the spaces. Because honestly, most of the time you don't want to have extra spaces in your names. Then you can use this function trim white space. There's only one problem with this trim white space function, or one problem. There's it only trims the white space at the outside of the string. For example, if I have Ruben Van Den Brink, make it a little bit bigger, and I do this white space trim, it will still be there. Let's create an indicator. The nice thing about creating indicators like this is that it always creates the correct indicator instantly. Alright, so if I run it, you can see that it still has the white space here in the middle. Alright, but if I add a couple of, if I do it like this and I run my program, then you can see there are no spaces anymore. Alright, so that's one of the functions for white space. Another function that I actually use a lot is the concatenate strings. And that's because we can use this to assemble as many strings as we want. And I actually do this for measurements, for example. If I have 2 measurements or 3 measurements, then I can just let me get rid of this, by the way. I'll show you how it works. Create a control. And let's create another control. Oops. And another. Alright, so I have 3 controls, so I can combine 3 strings together right now. And if I say Ruben, the next one, and then Brink, create an indicator. Alright, so if I run my program right now, it will combine these strings together into one string. You can see that there's already a problem right now because there are no spaces between my middle name, last name, and first name. I can actually add a space after or inside my strings, then it will solve the problem. But most of the time, if you're creating a form, for example, if you're programming a form and someone has to fill in this form, then you don't want them to do that. So how can we prevent this problem from happening actually? Is get rid of these spaces, just adding 2 extra inputs. And we can, just like the numeric palette, we have these constants here. We can do the same thing for strings. As you can see, we have a couple of string constants here, commonly used constants. And one of them is the space. And we can just select a space here and wire a space up to the 4th. And then the 3rd input and the 5th input is going to be my name again. So if I run it right now, it will see string 1, then it will add a space, then it will see or add string 2, and then it will add a space again, and then it will add string 3. Alright, so without any spaces behind my names, I can just prevent this problem from happening. Alright, and we can do this with measurement values as well. If we have measurement values, for example, then we can combine these values into one string, and that's really convenient because if we're using multiple or third-party hardware, like the HoloLens, if we need to communicate with the HoloLens, then we communicate via a network, and a network connection is always easy or very convenient to send strings through a network connection. And that's because strings can be numbers, symbols, characters, can be anything we want. So and then we send it like this. So we build up a string, for example, from a measurement result. So we have result 1, result 2, result 3 in this case. We separate them with a specific separator, which is in this case a space, but it can be it can be another symbol as well. If I let's wire up another constant. Just use the string constant in this case, and I can also say I want to use the AND symbol. And if I run it right now, I'm getting my measurement value separated with an AND value or an AND symbol in one string, and I can send this entire string in one go to my HoloLens, for example, and then the task of the HoloLens, or within the HoloLens, there's a program running which is reading out these strings, and then it needs to take it apart. It needs to take this string apart into separate smaller strings, so strings which only contain the measurement values, and then he needs to convert those strings with just measurement values into numbers, so he can do calculations with it, or he can do nice indicators like these indicators with these are numeric indicators, so we need to have a numeric value and not a string value. Alright, so how do we do that? We use a couple of functions for that. We can use the string subset, which is the most basic one. We can just wire this up to the string. So we just insert the string in here. And then we have a starting position and a length. And this, it takes apart the string. So if we say, okay, start at the beginning, and I want to have the first 3 characters, I just say 3 here. And give me an indicator, and then if I run my program, it gives me the first 3 characters of the string. Alright, so that works, but there's a problem because right now I'm having an AND signal in here, or an AND sign symbol, and this is not going to convert well. If I'm going to convert this string into numbers, then it's going to say, hey, wait, it's not. This is not a string just out of numbers. There's more in there. So that won't work. That results in a problem. So this is one function to actually take apart. I can just run it by 2. But if my measurement value is now 120, then we run into another problem. Alright, so there's another way to actually solve this problem. What I can do is, for example, search and replace. So where I just search for the and symbol and then replace the part before the and symbol. That's one way. There's also this match regular expression or match expression. Let me just show this one. The other one works more or less the same. So let me get the context help to show you a little bit. Alright, so we have two inputs. We have the string, the entire string input, and we have the regular expression input, which is this one. And this input needs to be, alright, what am I looking for? What's the expression that I'm looking for right now? Then it's going to search through the string. Once it found the expression that it was looking for, it says it outputs three values. Everything that's before the expression, everything that's during the matching expression, and everything that's after the matching expression. So let me just show this with the and symbol. Alright, so I'm looking for the and symbol right now. I have a constant here which is looking for the and symbol. Let's create two indicators. Because to be honest, this middle match substring output, we never use that because you know what you're looking for. So you know that you are looking for this and symbol, and this output is going to be an and symbol anyway. Alright, so if I run it right now, then you can see, alright, I got everything that's before my and signal and everything that's after the and signal. And if I run this again with this output, for example, if I run this function again with this output, I'm getting the 400 out of the loop, and I'm getting the 600 out of the string. Right, so that way we can take apart strings and we can combine strings. Now there's one last problem, and that's converting the string into a number, and for that we have this folder inside this string palette. And this folder has all kinds of conversions between strings and numeric values. We have all this top line or these top functions in the first row are all from a numeric value to a string, which is the other way around, because right now we need to have a string to a number. And for example, we can use, you can see decimal, hexadecimal, octal. So it depends what is the, if you have a hexadecimal value in your string and you need to convert it to a number, then you need to use this function. But in this case, we're just using a decimal one. So I'm wiring up my string here, which is going to be the 120. I need to, I can input actually if there's an offset and the number size or the number representation, and the output here, the number output is just a numeric value. So let me just start with this numeric. So if I run it right now, this 120 need to be converted into a number 120. Alright, so that works. And now we can do calculations with it. So just primarily focus on the first function, so the first two lines, and then the number conversion from string to numbers and from numbers to strings. Alright, so far this string conversion. Later in this video, or later in this module, we're going a little bit deeper into how do we actually use these strings in measurement setups.